Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dirty Laundry. I'm your host, Code Marvelous, and today I'm joined by a special guest, Dave, otherwise known as Cerberus, who was the third place overall finisher at 2015 Netrunner Worlds and also the highest placed criminal player at the World Tournament. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Dave Hoyland. I'm from the UK. So Netrunner-wise, I got into the game basically with a core set. It's the only LCG I play. While I'm kind of a big fan of board games, generally I've never really been into any other LCG or anything like that. It's just Netrunner for me. I was the 2014 UK National Champion, so that entailed me going to Worlds in 2014, which was probably one of the best experiences of my life. It was so fun. Had a very successful time over at Worlds in 2014, but one of the best things was kind of like the experience in general. So, which is why in 2015 there were about, I think it was 13 Brits who came over to try and take Worlds by storm. So, yeah, that's been probably my Netrunner history.
Okay. So, you're also, in addition to one of the top players, you're also a generator of some content for the game, for the larger discussion. I just recently read the article that you put up for a Winning Agenda. You want to talk about how you got involved with them?
Yeah, so again, that actually came out of my 2014 Worlds experience. I met Jesse Marshall, who was the 2014 Australian national champion. So we hang out a load at Worlds and just kind of got chatting, and then he asked me to come on his podcast. So that's actually how that all got started. And then from there, I've just been in contact with that group of guys, talking about the game, about content, things that are missing. I quite like the guys from the Winning Agenda. Because they do a podcast which is very focused on competitive play, which I think is very important, but also because they do a lot of stuff on kind of the emotional or kind of social aspect of the game. So, Brian wrote an article about tilt and how it affects you. So I've been trying to support them doing that. So, which is why the article I wrote was about pressure. So it's just a different aspect, I think. Obviously, a lot of people write about the meta or about strategies or about the deck archetypes. So they're doing some very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I know that myself personally, reading that article and the article about tilt that you just mentioned, it's nice also when we don't just have the discussion about play, in this kind of grand strategy sense, but also just what it's like to play, and I know for myself and a lot of the people in my local group, those types of articles where you talk about how as an experienced player, as a top tier player, you feel that pressure to perform and it affects your ability to play or how much you're able to enjoy the game, that speaks to everybody.
Mm.
That's an experience that everybody shares. You know what I'm saying? Because that was something that I definitely experienced at regionals this year. I got very pumped up. I was like, this is going to be the year that I'm going to make a really good show in the competitive season, and it really put a lot of pressure on me when I was in those matches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, massively.
So
I think.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's something that everyone feels, but really no one recognises or talks about. And when you are either you've had prize success or like yourself, if you put yourself out there and you write articles or you do podcasts or whatever it may be, that adds pressure onto you. Or if you just are like, I want to do well. This is my goal. You put yourself under a lot of pressure generally.
Yeah. But today, we're actually going to be discussing an underutilized, though never forgotten, criminal ID, Ken Tenma disappeared clone, who's the 4517 from the big box criminal. And, you wanted to specifically do this identity. Why don't you talk about why you chose Ken, and where we're gonna try to go with this build.
Okay, so criminal massively underplayed generally at the moment, and you know I understand why. I don't think they are particularly strong. Most kind of common criminal decks at the moment, due to their focus on run events. But the reason I wanted to look at Ken was a few reasons. First of all, it was because he's in the deluxe. He's never going away, and therefore, some of the best criminal IDs, such as Andromeda, such as Leela, are going to eventually cycle. So really, these ones are staying. We need to figure out, a good deck with them, and I don't believe a deck will always stay good, but actually, Ken has a focus which I think might be worth exploring. So, like all things, it needs testing. But there are some run events at the moment which I'm very interested in exploring, and Ken is definitely one of those runners who's probably best suited for it. But
Yeah. So yeah, and for everybody, the first time you play a run event, each turn you gain 1 credit. So he effectively reduces the cost of all of your run events, which can, save you a lot if you're, blue and you happen to have a lot of events available to you. So I think if we're gonna start on Ken Tenma, we need to discuss probably influence first, I would say.
yes,
Or what do you think?
so one of the reasons that Ken was my choice over any of the other criminal IDs was the influence as well as the run event focus. So at the moment the meta is very much focused on HP food, I think. So that's one of the strongest archetypes at the moment, and you'll see a lot of it played, especially because of its success at Worlds. Other
Right.
than that, you'll probably see, traditional astrobiotics that have NEH, and probably some sort of, harpsichord kill. Those are the top 3 things I always think. Can my deck deal with this?
Right.
You'll always see other stuff, but those 3, probably in that order, are the things I always try and account for at the moment. So HP food is an archetype which is really, really bad for criminal generally. So what I'd like to do is try and build a deck which is capable of dealing with that, because I think that it's quite easy for criminal with Desperado, Account Siphon, Legwork, etc. to actually have a fairly solid game against Near Earth Hub and Astrobiotics.
Yeah, that's fair.
So if we can build a criminal deck to deal with the Glacier matchup, hopefully the rest of it should, with a bit of tweaking, fall into place.
Right. Okay. So if we're gonna talk about, I guess what we need to talk about is what kind of breakers are we using, because that's gonna probably be the bulk of our influence.
Interestingly, I think so. The problem with Glacier is it's really expensive to break. Things like Eli, Itchy, all that sort of stuff is a huge problem, because criminals really want cheap runs. So the easy thing to do, and this is run event focused, is to only break it once. So and I like to revisit things which I've seen in the past. So I saw a while ago a Ken Tenma deck which used cutlery, so fork, knife, spoon, and
Right.
at the time I thought there's so much NEH about. Actually, it's a really solid idea, but it doesn't really fit the meta.
Right.
Whereas now, I think that being able to kill an Itchy or an Eli for a few clicks seems very strong.
Okay. So let's talk about the cutlery then. So we've got knife, forked, and spooned. I
Mhm.
imagine we're gonna want. They're pretty pricey. I
Yep.
imagine we probably want a 2 of knifed, because that's going to be the one that we're going to get the most mileage out of.
I think you might struggle to fit everything we need in with 2 knifed, but let's start with it.
Okay. And then we want a forked.
definitely.
And a spoon.
Yes, spoon is probably the one at the moment which you want the least, but as soon as you see a toll booth, you effectively you need it. So
Right. It becomes much better.
yeah.
So it's important to note that knifed is free in this build, forked is 1, and spooned is 1, which is also not insignificant. Alright,
Yeah.
so we only have 5 influence remaining. I imagine we're going to probably use that for a decoder and a fractor.
So
Or are we going to Faust it up?
so so yeah, there's a couple of options really. There's Faust or there's Ita, in my opinion. Now, I don't know. I think I'm inclined to do Ita.
Well, because we're going to have money. We might not have the luxury of pitching cards.
Yeah. So obviously there's the drug dealer Faust route, but I'd like to try an Ita build as well. And
Okay.
this is the thing, this is a starting point, and I'd like, with all decks, I don't expect to build it perfectly first time, but you need to take a premise and go, well, this is where I think it's strong. So, which doesn't leave us a lot of influence.
No, it leaves us with 2 influence remaining.
I would definitely want a Corroder.
Okay. So that's all of our influence is orange.
Yeah, the second knifed is potential for change, I think.
Which would give us 3. Do we want a Makers in this deck?
Yeah. So I was probably thinking a Makers and a Mimic.
Just to be able to get through things like Architect without sacrificing the access.
Yeah. I mean, if you've managed to kill off a significant chunk of their ice, an Architect isn't that bad when you've got a Mimic and a Desperado. So
I'm going to go ahead and drop the 3 same old things in there.
yeah, thanks.
Just go ahead and put that in. Yeah. So let's go back to criminal. Let's look at other ops, or not ops, events. Definitely want 3 account siphon, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So at the moment, if you look at this build, we've got 2 really great options for on an attack front. If they're resing big, expensive ice, anything which is taxing, we can kill it off. If they're not, we can probably just use our same old things in our account siphons and try and credit denial and just account siphon spam.
Right.
So it's pretty solid. You've got 2 good avenues already.
Okay. Now, since we're running one of all of these cutlery, do we want any planned assaults?
Yeah.
Or is that going to be too expensive?
No, I think you do want it just for the consistency of being able to find it, but I don't think you want many, so you only want 1 or 2, I think.
Yeah, let's start with 1. And then we can always add more. We want the gambles.
Mm-hmm. I think in Ken Tenma you definitely want dirty laundries.
Yeah, put the dirty laundries in there. Because, increased... What do we want as our console? Desperado?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just leverage that. 2 or 3. This is where I'm always concerned with somebody like Ken. Do we run 2 or 3?
3. There is no doubt for me. I mean, I used to run 2 back when I was playing Andromeda, and someone said, "Why don't you run 3?" And I'm like, 3, but I don't want to have this wasted draw. But then the games where you don't see it, they're just totally different, and it's just not worth it.
I think we definitely need special order.
Yes. So we're going to be running probably one-offs of a lot of the breakers. So we're definitely going to need special order. So I don't really like to go outside. So if you look at the breakers at the moment, we've got a Corroder and a Mimic. I think we definitely need a Fem, and everyone's going to be unhappy, but I think the answer is probably Peacock.
Ugh. Brutal.
So Peacock is pretty bad. So I generally would think about playing a passport as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Look at that breaker suite. Bunch of one-ofs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Shaper, right?
Yeah, only we've got special order instead of
Yeah.
SMC.
Yeah.
Do we want how many inside jobs? I think probably 2, or do we want all 3?
So can we play in 2 for now? And I think what it's probably worth doing is stopping when we get quite high on the card number and just kind of looking at how many run events do we have. Do we have enough that actually we should be playing Ken Tenma? Because if we don't have enough run events, then we're playing the wrong ID.
Right. Right. Okay, so do we need anything else in the hardware department? Are we going tag me? Do we need the plascretes, or are we calling it a day?
So I think we're probably going to need plascretes.
Yeah. Bank job seems good.
Okay, so before I think we need to think about the economy package. So bank job does seem good. However, at the moment we've got Shore Gambles and Dirty Laundries. So if we don't have something
That isn't run dependent.
yeah, we're going to be in trouble.
Okay.
We also have nothing draw related, and I don't think Criminal really have a lot of answers, which are good. So
we could always put in John Massanori.
Again, it comes back to that run focus, and if we're looking at killing off Glacier decks, that John Massanori is kind of the opposite of what you want.
Okay, that's fair.
So, I mean, you could go all in, like you could have security testing and bank job John Massanori, but that's actually something which is going to kill horizontal decks. It's going to kill off any age, because you'll have that crazy amount of resources. But exactly where I was heading to, something like Symmetrical Visage is probably where we want to be at.
Do we want 3, just to make sure we find it early?
Probably one too many, I reckon 2.
Yeah. Alright, so that gives us drawing a little bit of extra money.
Yeah, it's not really draw, but it's, it gives us money while we're drawing, so I think we definitely want KT, at least 2 KT.
Especially if our focus is strength in the late game for fighting Glacier.
Yeah. Because you don't mind removing tags if it's more of a, taking their money than anything else.
Do we want to use Armitages, or do we want to just let those go? Or maybe Daily Cast?
Daily Cast is probably best, I reckon.
So do we, yeah? So we're at 43 cards, or not 43, 42 cards.
Right.
Do we want to just... Let me see if there's anything else that we can put in.
It feels a bit mad not to be running Fairy, but also the other thing I would consider in this deck is Public Terminal.
Which acts as a supplementary money card for basically everything that we're doing.
Correct.
So put 3 of those in?
Yeah, I think it's not worth it unless you run in 3.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get one of these down in the early game, then a lot of our run events become effectively free.
Yeah.
Which is not bad at all. So we've got a fair bit. We've got 6, 9, 8, 10, 11 run events.
No, we've got more than that. We've got Siphon as well. Siphon, Dirty Laundry, Forked, inside job, legwork, knifed, spooned, and maker's eye. So my mouth is terrible.
1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 13. We have 13. So let's ask the question: do we have enough run events for this deck to be Ken Tenma?
Probably not yet.
Okay.
So, okay. So, one of the things I'm willing to do when I'm testing out a deck is take a risk with something. So, let's cut down to 1 Plascrete. Because I'm not saying that's how we'd end the deck on an okay permanent basis, but it feels like, from a testing point of view, I'd be okay to start on that.
Right. And what are we putting in?
So, the sensible things really are probably either a 3rd inside job or a 3rd legwork.
I feel like inside job is more versatile.
So, why do you think that?
Because it helps us get through any server. And if we're paying nothing for it, and especially if we're against Glacier, just paying 0 credits to ignore the outside piece of ice on a server is pretty good.
So, I'm a huge fan of the card, but it works especially well when it's combined with things like R&D interface, because then you're getting a multi-access for cheap. If we're getting a 1-card access, does that seem... I don't know if that seems as good.
Okay. I can buy into that. Alright, so now we have 14 run events.
I think it's 15. Anyway,
Yeah, it's 15.
so that's a 3rd of the deck.
It's pretty good.
And obviously 3 same old things.
Right. So do you think this is in fighting shape to test?
Doesn't seem terrible, does it? If I look at the deck, the things I think I'm unhappy with is the lack of fairy. I'd like to run 2 fairy.
Okay.
I don't see how we can really fit that in at the moment. But, I mean, it might be that we play things like Public Terminal and go, this is rubbish. We don't need this. Or we go, actually we've got too much money, or whatever it may be. So, I just think that we're not... Are we going to be worried about face-checking early into things like Architect? Because of... without fairy. Because that's what Crim do, right? You put down fairy and you run.
Right.
And we don't have that luxury at the moment.
Okay.
But
I mean,
so that's the thing.
That's definitely a concern. Like, I mean, but especially with what we're running, we definitely want that fem. I mean, do we think maybe we cut the daily casts to
That's
put
not
in? Go ahead.
It's not a lot. It's not a lot of econ though. I mean, you could. We could take a risk and drop a passport, drop the passport and drop a cast, or drop the Plascrete. I mean, okay, that means yeah, we're going to lose 2 kill decks, and you just got to accept that. But it would mean we could be more aggressive early on.
Right.
And I think you put the Plascretes back in when you knew what other cards weren't right.
Yeah, so we could cut Plascrete and a single cast for 2 fairies.
Yeah, let's try it.
Yeah, it seems good.
Maybe. I mean, it might be a bit light on economy. That's hard to tell. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you have a name in mind for this deck?
No, not really.
we'll call it public cafeteria. All right. So thank you very much for joining me, Dave.
No worries.
I really appreciate going through this. Everybody who's watching at home, look forward to a test run where Dave and I test the deck against somebody on Jinteki. You can find A&R Black Hats on Facebook, Twitter, and of course on YouTube. And you can find Dave on Twitter as well, and also on The Winning Agenda. Take care, and we'll see you all next time.